company to court.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting story and one we're going to keep you posted on.
All right. And if you have a problem you think Yvonne might be able to help you with, here's how to contact her.
You can give us a call, area code 902. The number is 493-3404, and leave a brief message on the answering machine. Or you can write P.O. Box 1653, Halifax, Nova Scotia, B3J2Z4.
ATV's Yvonne Colbert is on your side, and she gets things done. Thanks, Yvonne.
You're welcome.
Here's Paul.
Still to come on Live at 5, violence in the classroom and violence on the streets. New Brunswick says it's going to intervene in the schools. And how much of a problem is teen violence on our streets? Those stories next. That was Fredericton this afternoon, having a little bit of fun skateboarding, and fortunately, as kids around the region know, those skateboarding hours are going to be diminished somewhat because kids are getting ready to go back to school. And that brings us to this story. The classroom is becoming a place of misbehavior and sometimes even violence. The New Brunswick Department of Education wants to put a stop to this. Now, ATV's Laverne Stewart's in Fredericton. Laverne, what are we about to see happen in New Brunswick?
Well, Paul, the government wants school boards to set up policies that would give control of the classroom back to teachers and put an end to the increasing amount of violence that's happening in many schools across the province.
Now take off your skates and go to the church and ask God to forgive you.
Teachers are spending more and more of their time trying to control situations that are often uncontrollable. Corporal punishment as a means of dealing with disruptions of the classroom will never be brought back into the education system. So teachers say they need other means of dealing with violence that exists today. In fact, they say the #1 concern is violence against other students and themselves.
So are teachers eventually, after these policies set down, going to be able to go into the classroom and do what their job is to do, which is teach and not referee and not have to worry about violence against themselves or other students?
So that is the ultimate hope, and I think that will come about from an educational process within the schools.
Please leave about 3 to 4 lines between each question for your answer, okay?
The New Brunswick Teachers Association sees this announcement as a good first step.
It's the follow-up that will be the test to find out if teachers will no longer have to spend long amounts of time in trying to control some students who...
In creating a proper learning environment, teachers would like to see more guidance counselors, psychologists, and home tutoring.
And the minister's statement mentions the provision of alternate settings for students who are consistently and substantially disruptive. An alternate setting might be in a special school outside the normal school, and we have several of those in the province. My belief is that we need more.
We hope, obviously, an overall improvement in student behavior and a marked decline in acts of violence in the schools of this province.
According to the Department of Education, entire communities must get involved to put an end to the growing amount of violence that's happening in our schools.
The question that begs to be asked here, Laverne, is how can communities go about doing this?
Well, in speaking with the Deputy Minister of Education this afternoon, I was told that along with the school boards, the PTA and even students will be giving their input in order to set these policies of discipline down.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Back to school time again. Laverne Stewart in Fredericton. Nance?
Thank you, Paul. Still on the same theme, Kim Campbell is promising to crack down on young offenders by toughening up the Young Offenders Act. The Prime Minister says further change is needed to protect the public. But how much of a problem is teen violence? ATV's Sally Cummings is standing by live in St. John to try and answer that question. Sally.
Well, statistics show that more violent crimes are being committed in general in Canada. But Stats Canada says that the rate of growth of violent crime has slowed. Now, many criminologists fear that people are worrying about crimes more than they probably should be. But there is one community not far from here in St. John that has proven that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
St. John police admit they're seeing more young people in court for assaults than they did a few years ago. But the youth section is encouraged the numbers have begun to drop. Not far away in the bedroom community of Quispamsis, police were also worried that crimes among their youth may begin to rise.
most of it was loitering. However, there was the odd complaint of damage, and some people would complain of a bit of harassment and this type of thing.
The students were hanging out here at the Village Mall, sometimes gangs of them at a time, and police and store owners worried that the problem would only get worse.
They used to sit around on the benches, I guess, talk and smoke. I don't know if they ever confronted anybody, but they were always hanging around.
95% of the kids that come in here are, I would have to say, really good kids. I mean, they come in, they buy, and there's not a problem with them. It's just the ones that come in and they don't want to buy, or they're just hanging around looking for their buddies or whatever.
Did you ever hang out here?
Yeah, lots of times.
Tell me about it.
That was fun. You just hang around with your friends, just go look at the malls.
They have 2 air hockey games, 6 pool tables.
That's when police came up with the idea for the Kennebecase's Valley Teen Center. Do you think people like it here?
Oh, the kids like it. Gives them a place to go at night, gives them something to do. They don't bother you. It's not like anybody's watching over you constantly. They're just here making sure that nothing's happening.
Since the center opened about 2 months ago, police say there have been no more complaints about teens, and parents are relieved too.
Well, I'm very glad for the teen center because I have 4 teenage boys myself, and although they hadn't been hanging around, they probably soon would be once back to school. And
Now, police are actually looking for a new location for the teen center because once the ice goes in the arena next week, they'll have to find a new spot, and they're hoping to find someplace that's inexpensive.
Very interesting, Sally, and a lot of maritime communities would probably like to see a little more closely what Quispamsis has done. Sounds pretty good. Well, still to come on Live at 5, waiting for the federal election. It can be a bonanza for some. We're going to hear from some Maritimers about that a little later. And when we return, Charlottetown's going to get a facelift. We'll tell you what's in store in just a moment.
All the island ladies will have to continue.
Before there wasn't a boardwalk, and they just put that down and passed.
Today marked the official opening of the Halifax Police Museum in the basement of the police station there. It's home to a whole range of historic items, from old uniforms to confiscated weapons, old handcuffs, even a replica of a police horse and buggy. Neat stuff.
Yeah, it looks fascinating. Well, they're talking about building something in Prince Edward Island, too, Nancy. In fact, there are big plans in the works for the historic Charlottetown Waterfront. There's an award-winning plan that includes a winter skating oval in the winter and a water park. Dan Fio has more for us.
There you go.
Clean, although a little chilly, Charlottetown Harbor is an historic focal point, and it's become a people place with the redevelopment of the Peaks Quay Wharf and Marina. Now, the Charlottetown Area Development Corporation is looking next door, where oil storage tanks were removed a few years ago, with plans for a new park.
I think we'll have a real good working waterfront that will be a big draw for people, and then, you know, people will be able to kind of live in and come down to and really enjoy.
The design competition winning plan features an oval walking path that will be refrigerated to be a skating rink in the winter, and a water park with harbor inlets created within an area marking the spot where the Fathers of Confederation landed here in 1864.
Before there wasn't a boardwalk, and they just put that down in the past 2 years, I think, which made it a lot nicer, too.
I think it's absolutely charming. It's very, very beautiful, and just as quaint. All the right words come to play with small town niceness.
Within the next couple of years, it's going to boom down here, I believe, which is what Charlottetown needs.
The project hasn't been funded yet, but given the enthusiasm so far for the rest of the waterfront redevelopment, Mackenzie says he's not worried.
They're proposing running a path, what they call an intertidal landscape, through the site that would be a watered, almost like a river system within the site.
Oh, neat.
And with wharves coming out onto that people could sit, it would basically develop its own aquatic life. There's a real, I don't know if it's a need, but there's a real feeling there that, yes, let's celebrate our history here. And as I say, we're overwhelmed with the response we got.
In Charlottetown, Dan Vio, ATV News.
All right, thank you, Dan. We're back in just a moment with the Tuesday night ATV primetime lineup.
That's right, and you remember Dan Fielding?
I do.
Everybody does, right? The obnoxious Crown prosecutor on ATV's Night Court. Well, now, John Larroquette is back with a new show. It premieres tonight on ATV. A little sneak preview for you when we return.
Welcome back to Live at 5. Well, with growing speculation that a federal election call could come any day now, many companies are gearing up for the business of campaigning.
That's right. Whether it's signs, buttons, office space, or advertising, elections mean revenue, and that's good news in tough economic times. ATV's Dan McIntosh has more for us.
The political machinery may be waiting for Prime Minister Campbell, but businesses like Eastern Signprint and Stellarton are ready for action. Every campaigning politician needs lawn signs, pamphlets, and envelopes, and that could mean as much as $50,000 in local and province-wide business.
So we're looking for a huge increase in business. It's a plus. Elections aren't budgeted for. It's a plus for us, and it will increase our employment, give our part-timers more hours to get them through the month of October.
During a campaign, empty stores are rented and become campaign headquarters. Then there's organizations like Summer Street Industries, a vocational training center for mentally challenged adults. They raise money by making buttons, and they've got close to 10,000 pieces in inventory.
It could mean, $2,000 to $5,000 in business, in terms of gross business, and certainly, in these times, every little bit counts, and we're no different. We need the business as much as everybody else.
It's been a busy year for companies here in Pictou County that benefit from election campaigns. What with a provincial election in May, a by-election earlier this month, and that federal election that's expected to come at any time.
There's no question. The provincial election was very beneficial and probably saved our first quarter. But we're hoping that the federal election will be a good gain as well.
While regional and provincial media may benefit more in a federal campaign, local issues still need space and airtime, and that helps local radio and newspapers.
Any business in addition to your regular business, of course, is welcome at any time, and especially in these recession times, an election, having it at this time, well, I want to say I think all radio stations, and ourselves included, would be welcoming the business. There's no doubt about that.
Whatever the company, the runners are poised at the blocks, ready to go.
Within an hour of the election being called, we'll probably start receiving calls from our customers that we quoted. And first of all, they'll be looking for a meeting to get together, to go over the artwork, and more importantly, when can they get delivery?
In Pictou County, Dan McIntosh, ATV News.
And the wait for the big call continues. Anyway, we can tell you what's on ATV's primetime lineup tonight. No waiting for that, just about half an hour or so. It starts at 6:30 with Full House and then Murphy Brown at 7. The kids are back with more Full House at 7:30. It's Unsolved Mysteries at 8. Rescue 911 is on at 9, and then Roseanne at 10. Happy to bring you a brand new show at 10:30. Premieres tonight. John Larroquette's Sounds Great.
Then on the Wednesday edition of Live at 5, funding is dropping, tuition is rising, and students are paying the price. But is university becoming the exclusive domain of the rich? We've got that story tomorrow at 5.
That's it for the Tuesday night edition of Live at 5. Thanks a lot for joining us. Hope you'll join us here tomorrow. And now the news continues here on ATV with the ATV Evening News at 6. And Steve Murphy. Steve?
Thank you, Paul. Tonight's 12,000 jobs gone as the axe falls on our fishery again.
Decisions that I've taken are difficult ones, but they are ones that are absolutely necessary as we deal with the conservation of the fish stocks that we have come to depend on.
No comment about no sex and the single sailor. And heading for higher ground as Emily approaches.
People continue to leave, and as the storm rapidly approaches the coast, why more and more will be leaving because they become more frightened as the situation develops.
Now, from the #1 news team in Atlantic Canada, the ATV Evening News.
Good evening on what is not really a very good evening at all for 12,000 Atlantic Canadians unemployed tonight in all but a couple of zones.